Well, this morning I'm going to begin the message by giving a tennis lesson. And it's free, but I assume that since, my fee is $100 an hour, you'll leave that as you exit the church, right? Anyway, this says my father's tennis racket, you can see. Shaped interestingly, it's an old racket, right, and it's shaped long, which was made illegal and is now back in style with the new ones. And I didn't have a ball anywhere, but God answers prayer, and when I came to church, this was in the gutter out front. Yeah, don't ever underestimate, right? Anyway, I want to start out because this becomes a good illustration. Everyone, you've either watched it or maybe you've played it, but anyone who's played it at a certain level knows that there is a strategy that a tennis player is always thinking several moves ahead. It's kind of like chess. You're always trying to move yourself in the best position as your opponent is trying to get you in the worst position, and vice versa. And that all begins with the serve. And of course, we all love a big serve. When I played in college, a good, hard, flat serve was probably around 100 miles an hour, maybe in excess, but that's about it. I think most players were probably 95, somewhere around there. But, today the pros hit 120 and higher because probably because of conditioning and certainly because of equipment. But what folks aren't always aware of, unless you've played the game a lot, is the strategy involves, when you serve, you set up the whole play, the point you want to win. And so from the very beginning, you kind of know what you want to do. And it is the service itself of the ball that sets that up or begins to set it up, whether it's down the line or it's wide or whatever else. But there are multiple different types of serves. We all know the flat serve, which is the high-powered serve, and it's usually tossed right about here and hit as the player tries to get as much momentum and weight behind the ball, maximizing the strength of it all, and it has as little spin as possible. I mean, it'll spin naturally, but not enough to really affect it. The trajectory is at an angle. Now, another option, and it is frequently used on your second serve, tennis players have to be given two chances to get the ball in. It's called a topspin serve. And just like topspin in any sport, you start low and you hit over the ball, and of course it spins forward. And in this case, topspin serve, the ball is thrown and hit here. It's hit at the top of right directly over your head, and then you follow through on the left side of your body. These are all right-handed instructions. And of course, the ball has a fair amount of speed, but it clears the net much easier. It spins over the net like this, and if you hit the ball with a lot of topspin, it'll kick. It'll kick high. I've seen balls literally kick over somebody's head, and that depends on the grit and the surface you're playing on as well as the ball, how it's hit. But there is another serve that's used less frequently. It's much more difficult. A lot of people probably haven't even heard it, and I don't think pros use it too much because it's slower, and if you've learned to play it, it's not as effective. But at more of an amateurish level, it works very well. It's called an American twist. And in this instance, the ball is thrown behind you, and you must arch your back. You arch your back, you drop your racket, and you hit the ball back here. And the follow-through goes through on the opposite side of the body. So if you're a receiver in the game, you are watching not merely the ball come at you, you are watching the toss and you're watching the body, and you're watching where they're going to strike the ball so you can anticipate it. Because an American twist, rather than being like a slice, which I neglected, a slice is like a curveball in baseball, right? Instead of slicing from right to left, an American twist will come over the net a bit like a topspin serve, but when it hits, it kicks the opposite direction. It kicks, instead of into your forehand, it kicks high and into your backhand. And if you haven't seen it, a lot of guys are just like this, trying to figure it out, and you effectively have to cut it to negate the spin that's on the ball, and sometimes it can go anywhere if you miss. I know learning it, a lot of times people will frame serve, they'll hit the ball right here and it'll fly 100 miles that way. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline, but it can be very effective when you play against people who've never seen it. When I got out of college and I played some of the USTA national kinds of things, my doubles partner who played at K-State had a wicked American twist serve, and we played a team in Colorado who'd never seen it before, and the whole match was done in 40 minutes, including warm-up. I remember at one point, I think it was after the first set, Robin said to me, "Well, you should do this, let's go home." And I did, and I heard somebody on the other side say, "Oh no, now the other guy's doing it." So my whole point in saying this, it's about the spin you want to get on the ball because of the reaction and what goes on from there. And the American twist serve, hence the title of the sermon, is counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive. It in no way plays to your natural response. It is the opposite that you might expect. There isn't anything about it that you intuitively are thinking about and preparing to hit. It catches you off guard, often even when you know it's coming, because you don't know exactly how it's going to kick. It is counterintuitive to everything we learn and most of what we do from birth. What does that have to do with our scripture? Well, as I read this passage and I thought about all the things Jesus said and Jesus did throughout his ministry, almost all of them are counterintuitive. Think about it. Almost everything Jesus said and did was counterintuitive. That's basically how I would define his character and his message and his deed. What he did was not always extraordinary, it was just out of the ordinary. It was not completely unanticipated, but it was almost always unexpected. You know, some of the miracles he did, we now perform those same things in different ways, but we don't always expect them to go the way we think they should either. And counterintuitive is like swimming upstream. It's like playing against the wind. You're always going against the flow of the surrounding environment. Which is why so many of his things seemed like they contradicted the givens in our world that most of us, intuitively from little on have been told or just learned. You got to go along to get along. Or is it you got to get along and go along? That's how you got to do things. That's how you got to work. That's what people expect. And that's what needs to happen if you want to rise up and win at the game of life. Right? You got to go along and get along. You got to do what everybody else does. You got to fit in the mold. You can't contradict it. But that's certainly not how Jesus thought. That's not how Jesus thought. That's not how Jesus operated from the very start of his ministry. This is clear. Go back and read it for yourself. If you take a look at the Sermon on the Mount, found in the early chapters of Matthew and Luke, Jesus begins by saying, you have been told this, now I'm going to tell you this. They're called the antithesis. There's 7 of them. You have been told this, I'm telling you this. And then in the Beatitudes, just preceding that, the Beatitudes kind of puzzle us all the time, what they're about. The meek will inherit the earth, Jesus says. Come on, I know that one's not true. The meek inherit nothing. Blessed are the peacekeepers. No, blessed are those who have the biggest guns. I can hear the crowd, or at least some of the crowd, listening to Jesus say this. No, that's just not true. I want to wring the neck of any Roman I can get my hands on. And Jesus' counterintuitive thoughts don't stop there. Love your enemy, turn your cheek. If you want to be the master, you want to be the top dog, be willing to be the servant. The first must be last. You have to give in order to receive. Oh, let the children lead for a while and you follow. To find your life, you must lose it. There's one sheep is lost. Rescue the one sheep that's lost. Don't worry about the 99. I tell you, forgive not once, but again and again and again, 70 times 7. You've been told to forgive. I'm telling you to forgive this much. And of course, when he really gets into it, he says, you've heard that you should not commit adultery, but I tell you, if you even look at someone with impure thoughts, you have already committed adultery. Come on, Jesus, you ask too much. Nothing personal, Jesus, but, really, let's think about this. You're talking nonsense. I just want you to give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me. Can't you imagine this whole discussion that's teed up here about the fishing? Come on, Jesus, we've been fishing all night and we haven't caught a thing. Give us a break. We do this for a living. We're pros. And you're going to come out here, a carpenter, and tell us to go out again? That would just be a waste of your time and ours. And Jesus says, just humor me, guys. Humor me. So they set sail, and upon reaching their favorite fishing hole, they prepare to throw their nets in. And now, their nets, they haven't had time to wash them, to clean them from the night before. They haven't been able to do that, so they got to fuss with them and get them ready. And Jesus interrupts them and said, no, wait. I don't want you to do it the way you have always done it. I don't want you to throw it on that side. Throw it on this side. Oh, man, you know how much work that is? You know how much work that is, and besides, that's not how we do it. We know what we're doing, Jesus, and I imagine Jesus with a little twinkle in his eye said, do you? Do you really know what you're doing? Okay, Jesus, but just so you know, we got to get done by 11 o'clock, or I won't get home in time to see Master Chef, and my whole day will be ruined. And Jesus responds by saying, just try. Just try. And of course, the story tells us that when they do, they get the mother lode. They have so many fish that they've caught that it demands 2 boats. That would be a full ton, right? And both boats threaten to capsize. Well, having heard all of that, of course, the responsibility of the preacher and of all of us who hear this is to ask, it's probably the same question the disciples asked, really. Okay, what's this about? What's this about? What's the point here? I think, for one thing, it's about humbleness. not humbleness. Not assuming that we're all that. That I'm an American Idol. And our culture does that a lot. I'm all that. And to say that sort of thing may come as a shock, I think, probably to a lot of people, because the contrary to saying I'm all that is that maybe somebody else has an idea too. Maybe their idea is better. You know, if you don't try, you never know. And besides, if your way isn't working, what have you got to lose? You ever watch geese fly? You ever watch geese fly? I know in Colorado we watched them many times. Canadian geese, and they fly in that V, right? And if you watch them carefully, the geese take turns being the lead goose, right? And in all the years I've watched geese in that pattern fly north and south and all the ways they do, I have never once seen them fight over who's going to be in front. Because the goal of where they're headed is more important than who's in the lead. It's kind of sad, really, when you think about it, that fowl are smarter than we are. You know? It's about where they're headed, not who's out in front. I read a lot of Peter Drucker when I was doing my doctoral studies, and I know that many of you, he was really big, certainly in business and transforming institutions and so forth. I want to read a few quotes, a few sayings of his as I move towards my conclusion. Drucker says, if you want something new, stop doing something old. There is nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency something that shouldn't even be done. And my greatest strength, he says, as a consultant is to be ignorant and ask questions. And then the final one, the best way to predict your future is to create it. When my son started kindergarten 30 plus years ago, I don't think I'll ever forget, Gene and I went to the, what do they call that? Orientation. They call it an orientation, thank you. We went to the parents' orientation, and the principal stood up in front of all us anxious first-time parents. And he said, our responsibility as educators is to prepare your child for a job that does not yet exist. Our responsibility as educators is to prepare your child for a job that does not yet exist. Boy, hasn't that prophecy come true? And in sharing that with you, I would apply it to myself, to the church, to you, and to others, that I would change one word in it. I would replace the word job with world. Our responsibility as Christians is to prepare all of us for a world that does not yet exist. The world right now that we know we're in, the world that is just kind of knocked our feet out from under us because of post-COVID, that's the world in which we are. We do not know yet, and we're trying to figure out and even educate ourselves for that world that's coming that we don't know. It does not yet exist. It's happened before. You know, people ask me, how's the church? And my only answer I can give, you know, time will tell. Time will tell. I don't know. People ask, well, how's the world? And my only response can be, can anyone honestly say? And if you hear someone say that they know how the world's going to be and how things are going to turn out, I advise you to turn and run away from them as quickly as you can. because that's just not true. Things have been and have been exacerbated by COVID. Life is moving, it's spinning at such a fast pace. All that most of us can do is hang on. Hang on and keep going. You know, here in the church, we continue to throw anything and everything against the wall looking for what will stick. The difference is, by faith, I believe that something will. Something will. We can just never, ever throw in the towel. You know, that's really the point of this story in so many ways. Jesus says, okay, I don't care, I don't care what happened last night. I don't care you've been doing this for 30 years, Maybe those 30 years is what got you to where you are. I want you to get back in the boat. I want you to sail out to the deepest spot. Try again. Perhaps counterintuitively try again. Cast your net on the opposite side. In the book of Revelation, John has God saying, "Behold, I make all things new." Behold, I make all things new. It's as though God is telling us, okay, we've tried it your way, now try it mine. Give my way a chance for a change. Give my way a chance. Cast your net on the other side. You just might be surprised at what happens. Amen.